You have a 3-minute opening statement, and if you'd like to sit up there, you're welcome to do that. That's also a microphone too, that you can use that when he's done.
Okay to start, Ken?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Thank you to the 912 Patriots for your hospitality. It's so nice to be here again and see you in the spring. It's always a very nice event, very well organized, and thank you so much for having me. I'm going to start off by saying, look, I'm more concerned about my own race than anyone else's race, but I want to say this. I'm really thankful that at the time, Mayor Lou Barletta had the guts to stand up against the federal government and fight against illegal immigration. So this bill was So my beautiful wife, Fran, is not here. She's with her mother now. This is kind of a sad story. I'll try to keep it brief. My mother-in-law fell down and broke both her ankles. So she is on the couch at my house, and my wife's kind of babysitting her a little bit right now. So I would ask for your prayers. Not for my mother-in-law, for me. But anyway, I live with my beautiful wife, Fran, my 4 kids in Dillsburg. I've been living in central Pennsylvania my whole life and graduated from Cedar Grove High School. I was very blessed in 1988 to become a Deputy U.S. Marshal. I served in the U.S. Marshal Service for 23 years. In 2002, I was appointed by President Bush to serve as the U.S. Marshal, which is a presidential appointment and a full Senate confirmation position. I feel honored to be able to serve in that position, to serve my constituents, to serve my country. But when I retired in 2011, I still wanted to serve. I spent a brief time as the Deputy Inspector General. I didn't feel the same connection to my community and the connection between my service and my community. And about that time, my friend Scott Perry decided he was going to run for Congress, and we talked, and he thought it might be a good idea if I ran for his seat. So in a link of prayer, my wife Fran and I and my family set out on a mission that was risky. We were running against real credible candidates, didn't know if we were going to win or lose. I had to resign from my position with the state to run, and we got elected. And I think over that 4 years, we've done some really good things. I'd like to say that with the help of my colleagues over here, Representative Bloom, Representative Loge, Representative Tallman, we repelled the largest tax increase in PA history. Our governor wanted to raise your taxes. He wanted to tax you from cradle to grave. And we locked arms, stood in the line, and said, not only no, we said, hell no. You're not going to do it to us. And we fought him tooth and nail. So also was able to introduce a bill which protects children from child predators, passed into law. Proud of that one. And also introduced and passed through the House 2 bills that deal with welfare reform. One says that if you're a convicted drug dealer, you can no longer receive welfare benefits. One says if you are, thank you for that. One says if you are a non-compliant sex offender, you cannot receive welfare benefits. So I'm hopeful those are going to become law. At some point we're going to have to reintroduce them because they got to the Senate and they sat, unfortunately, but we're going to reintroduce them. But listen, folks, it is to my core to serve my constituencies. Public service has been something that I've wanted to do since day one in my life. My mom tells the story that when I was a little boy, I had a sister with heart condition, and I told her I wanted to be a doctor, but on my days off I wanted to be a cop, and it was about age 4. So I was able to fulfill that. I love the way I can serve. This has fueled me to want to run for Senate, and I promise you that if I'm so blessed to be elected, I will serve you with all my heart. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Jahoski, Independent. Welcome, sir.
This one?
Yeah, I think you're better off with that
This
one.
one works better? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for Cumberland Project 912. I really appreciate the invitation to be here. This is exciting to see all of you here. I have my family here. My wife and 2 daughters are here. I dragged them along. And my daughters, I'm sure, are thrilled. But I wanted them to see how we do things in a republic. And this is a republic. And we are running for the legislative branch, which is the lawmaking branch of our government. And in a republic, we choose our representatives to represent us actually. And I, as a teacher at Cedar Grove High School, I teach U.S. history, and I'm always telling my students the difference between virtual and actual representation. And in this country, in our republic, we have actual representation. where the people we elect to represent us actually represent our interests and protect our interests. And in the world that we inhabit today, and in the midst of the divisiveness of the current election cycle, it has come to my thinking that something is wrong. There's a ghost in the machine. And that our representatives and our elected officials are not representing our interests, and they're not protecting our interests. And I'm reminded of the Constitution, which exists to protect our rights. And there has been a barrier placed between the people and the Constitution. And the barrier I speak of is the political party system in this country. Nowhere in this document does it say that political parties can control the electoral process. Nowhere in this document does it say that political parties can draw district lines where the representatives are drawn from. Nowhere in this document does it say that political parties get to control the legislative process. And so as I watched the deterioration of our civil society through the division of our political system, I was compelled to run. I was compelled to run to such a degree that I couldn't resist the urge, though I tried, believe me. I have committed myself to public service my whole life. I have been a teacher for nearly 20 years. And as your senator, I would serve for 4 years to reduce the power of the political parties in our legislative process. And then I would return to the classroom where I was born to be. So thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. You seem to have got the most questions, you guys. Mr. Regan, would you support opening elections to all registered voters in open primaries, including independents, other minority parties? In 2015, we had 700,000 independents.
I'm sure you know what the right to vote is something that, is so important to this country. It separates us from many of the countries around the world. And of course, I would support anything that made people more readily available to vote for who they wanted to vote for. I think it's the American way of
I think we can do better than simply opening the primaries to all registered voters. I believe we can establish policies that would encourage people to have longer periods of time to vote. We have a very narrow window to vote. We ought to have early voting in this country, or in this state, rather. In Pennsylvania, other states have early voting. Other states have, they permit people and residents to be registered to vote much easier. And this goes back to my point about running for this office, because the confidence of the people in their elected officials is the basis of our entire civil society. We do not have trust in our government if we discover or we suspect that our government is in some way trying to limit our right to access the ballot box. And so it would be one of my priorities as your senator to reduce all barriers to voting that did not violate the integrity of the election.
Mr. Johosky, the PA pension reform issue is one of the state's biggest albatrosses. How do you see getting the pension obligation problem solved if you're elected?
Well, the way I understand the pension obligation, I think of it as an obligation to make good on the promise of current retirees or current people currently in the system. And there is a $60 billion obligation that is unfunded. And the unfunding of this obligation was a choice that was made. It didn't happen by accident. It happened as a result of public policy to not fund the debt obligation. And so now we are having to pay the piper. And for 10 years, the state did not fund the pension system. And so now we're stuck with trying to figure out what to do. And so I'm hearing in the legislature that the plan is to sort of stay the course and make good on the promise of this unfunded pension obligation. Recently, last week, a bill was debated. I don't think it didn't make it through. But I don't want to confuse the bill that was described and debated on last week for one that would solve the problem of the unfunded obligation. All it would have done would have removed the new hires into a new pension system, a hybrid system coupled with a defined benefit and defined contribution plan. But that plan would not have addressed in any way the $60 billion unfunded obligation. So you ask me, what would I do about it? I honestly don't know. Elect me senator and I'll find out.
Well, with all due respect, that's not, I mean, a lot of what he said is true, but that bill that did not run ultimately did pay down the unfunded liability by about $3 billion over 30 years, which is opinions, but it did pay down the unfunded liability. Now, here's the thing. We have state employees who, when they were employed by the state, they were offered a deal. My personal belief is we should honor that deal. We should not touch current employees. We should not touch current retirees because politicians made bad decisions. That's not fair. So the only way we can really impact this in any way is to stop the bleeding, right? New employees coming into the system need to be under a different deal. We passed that through the House and the Senate and sent it to Governor Wolf, and Governor Wolf vetoed it. We are attempting to redo it. It doesn't make it easy on us, let me tell you. So we're attempting to redo it, and we're going to send him another bill, and hopefully he'll see the light and sign it. But it's a campaign issue, so there's not motivation there for him to do it. He doesn't want to give the Republicans a win. That's what's motivating this whole thing. But the bottom line is, though, there are a couple of things we can do. Like we talk about the unfunded liability. What can we do there? Well, it's $60 billion. So the state government, CSRS and PSRS, manage the money in the pension system to the tune of about 100 basis points, 90 to 100 basis points. That costs the taxpayers between $400 and $700 million a year. We could privatize the management of the money to Vanguard or another PA company who would do it for about 4 basis points, which would save us that money, and we could apply that money to the unfunded liability. I think it's a good, conservative, prudent idea. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, we need to protect current employees, we need to protect current retirees, and we need to get a plan moving forward that stops the bleeding, and then we have to work towards fixing that $60 billion unfunded liability, which has got to be a priority because it cuts across so many different issues.
Can I rebuttal?
Sure.
My opponent said something telling in his remarks. He described that Governor Wolf would not do the right thing because he did not want to give Republicans a win. This goes back to my original point. Political parties are bent on dividing us. How often, perhaps, could it be said by a Democrat or a Republican that they would not do the right thing because they didn't want to give the Democrats a win? And so this back and forth of taking sides, we can't let the Democrats win, we got to kill this bill. We can't let the Republicans win, I'm going to veto this bill. How often is that the driver of our public policy and not the will of the people?
Yes, you can rebut his rebuttal. Sure.
Well, I mean, to think that you get a term, so Mr. Gihoski has this idealistic pie-in-the-sky version of how government should go, and maybe he's right on some of these fronts. I'm not saying he's not. But to be one independent, first of all, you have to caucus with either a Republican caucus or a Democratic caucus. I would ask the question, what caucus would you caucus with? Because you're going to have to sit in the caucus of one thing. So if your goal is to walk into Jake Corman and Joe Scarnati and Mike Terz, I know, and say, hey, look, guys, we're going to change the two-party system, which has existed in this country for over 200 years. You're going to find yourself hanging on a coat hook somewhere. It's not going to fly. Because we do, as America, we have the greatest system in the world. The system that has produced freedom for over 200 years. Is it the perfect system? I would say not. But it's our system, and there's no better one in the world, and it does a good job. I think so. Thank you.
I don't know, it could be rebuttal palooza if we...
Again, the question was asked directly, which side I would caucus with.
Yes, that would be, why don't you just give a yay or nay on that, and then we'll move on.
Well, how about neither? And the deal is that I would have to choose a caucus, because the parties control the money. In the state Senate, I don't know what it is, $700 million maybe, that they are given taxpayer dollars. And the Democrats have half the money and the Republicans have half the money, and they divvy it up to pay for staff and offices and so on. And so if I walk in as an independent, they're going to make me choose. And whose house is it? Is it the people's house or is it the political party's house? That's what I'd like to know.
Again, if we're living in reality, what that means is that for 4 years, with Mr. Chihosky as our senator will have no voice in anything that's done in state politics. That would be the result of that.
Go ahead and, Mr. Reagan, keep it. As an outspoken supporter of Donald Trump, how would you represent those that are less than enthusiastic of his caustic behavior? Example, comments regarding women, minorities, etc.
Well, look, let me tell you, I continue to be way, way more concerned about what Hillary Clinton has done as opposed Here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. Donald Trump is for a strong military. Mike Regan's for a strong military. Donald Trump is for supporting our men and women in the uniform of the police. I'm for that. He's for securing our borders. I'm for that. He's for building our economy, producing jobs. I'm for that. You know, do I like how he says it all the time? No, I don't. It rubs me the wrong way. But look, ideologically speaking, I'm in line with it. I could, quite frankly, I don't know what it would have to take. Probably shock therapy and a couple of gunshots to the chest for me to vote for Hillary Clinton. So I'm happy to do that.
Mr. Chihosky, would you like to continue on the Trump before we go into a new chapter here? Another question? Your thoughts on, who are you voting for president?
Well, I'm a fan of the secret ballot.
Okay.
And the fact is, we don't have to vote for the president in this election. We can pass on
That is true.
And so, you know, one thing I will be honest with you about the Republican nominee. I'm not a fan of the Republican nominee. I'm rather offended to the point of not being able to support him as a result of his rhetoric. I can't personally get past it. As a father of daughters, I just can't. However, I do believe that those of you in this room who are supporting the Republican nominee for president have your Senate candidate standing right here holding the microphone. Because when the Republican nominee for president talks about draining the swamp, I think I'm prepared to do that. And that's what I would say about that. Oh, one more thing. November 9th. How's that going to feel? Are we going to be a divided people? Or are we going to be a united people? I wonder about November 9th. And who is it that brought us to the point of such division? Not the independents, the two parties.
Another question for you, sir. Were you ever a registered Democrat?
Yes.
That was quick.
I think so was Donald Trump, actually.
Oh, that's good.
One thing
That's a good one.
our primary is closed in the United States, or in Pennsylvania, I'm sorry, not all over the United States. Our primary is closed. And so, in order for me to participate in any way with who the candidates are, I have to abandon my independent status and select a party. And in Pennsylvania often comes late in the primary race, and so there's not often occasion for a primary voter in Pennsylvania to have an impact on the presidential race. In 2008, that was not the case. And in 2008, I did register as a Democrat to take advantage of my right to vote. The Republican race was already over by the time the primary landed in PA. And so registering as a Republican wouldn't have offered me any option.
voting in Republican primaries and general elections my entire adult life. But I will say this, I would gladly vote for Donald Trump, the ex-Democrat, over Hillary Clinton, this fascist socialist.
Oh, good news, we still have more time. How will you vote? And again, we're getting a lot of, first of all, thank you for making it easy to read. It's very easy to read. But a lot of different styles of writing tonight. How will you vote on every bill that will allow any person to use any public bathroom and shower facility of whatever sex they say they identify with on any given day? I read it verbatim.
So I'll vote no on that bill. I mean, come on. I just think it opens up a lot of things. There's a lot of unintended consequences with that bill. And I would say the unintended consequence is not necessarily something who identifies with another gender. It's the pervert who wants to go into the same toilet as my 16-year-old daughter. That's what concerns me. I mean, hey, look, God made us all, and we are who we are, and I'm not condemning anyone for what decisions they make. But when it comes to the safety of my children, that's where I have a problem. So I'm a no on that bill, unless we can work that part of it out.
Mr. Johosky.
Well, we do have laws against perverts in the bathroom, and we can enforce those laws.
Police officers in the bathroom.
Well, how do we do it now? I mean, there's nothing stopping anyone from dressing up as a woman and passing themselves as a woman and sneaking into the women's room to conduct perverted acts.
Gives them a defense. That's what it does.
And so, to answer the question, I would probably, depending on the language in the bill, and it would require that, I guess, transgender folks are recognized as a legally defensible minority. And I would tend to vote yes on such legislation. I do believe that we have the right to live and to be the people that we are. And restroom facilities in, out.
Gentlemen, we're at that point for closing arguments or closing statements. Would you like to do yours? 90 seconds each? 1 minute each? Okay. Timer says 1 minute each. Thank you.
Well, I've shared with you a bit about myself, and I would like to have more opportunities for me to learn about you and for you to learn about me. And I'll be hanging around at the end of the evening if anyone has any specific questions for me. I do want you to understand that my compulsion to run in this election is driven by my abiding faith in our republic and the belief that our Republican form of government is the vanguard of human civilization. Never in the history of humanity has there been anything like the United States and the republic that is our pathway to prosperity and peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think this is working anymore, isn't it? Yeah. Is it on? Hello?
Nope.
Now is it?
Nope.
I think I can yell this one out. We can hear you.
We can hear you. Speak loud.
Guys, first of all, let me just say, it has been my great and profound honor to serve you as your state representative for the past 4 years. Thank you so much for giving me that opportunity. I've been able to meet a great group of people who I've been honored to serve with, many of my Republican colleagues who are here in the room today. It's been such a learning experience and such an eye-opening experience to see how our system works. And although it isn't perfect, it's a great system. And we accomplish a lot of good every day. And a lot of it is bipartisan. Most of it is bipartisan. You know, we live in scary times. Public service has not come to me on a whim. It's something I've thought about my entire life and something I've participated in my entire life. You know what? As a U.S. Marshal and Deputy U.S. Marshal, I had to send young men into harm's way. I had to manage an office of 100 people. I come from a real world, real serious background. And I've taken that to the House, and I'd like to take it to the Senate. And I promise you that if I'm elected, I'll work very hard. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Representative Regan and Ken Chahosky, thank you.